The 2023 NFL Draft is bound to be a good one, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys where I think everyone is going to be taken in this no-trade first-round mock draft. I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to Chase Keller Journalism. Hi guys, I'm Chase Keller, and today I'm going to be going through my first-round mock draft as of January 23rd. This took place the day after the divisional round, so the top 4 picks have not been decided yet, but I'm going to use my idea of what I think is going to happen. This mock draft is going to be a no-trade mock draft because I do believe we should wait on trades until the end of the season to have a solidified draft order. But overall, I think this video should put into perspective what teams do need, and if there were no trades in the first round, here's what I think would happen. If you're an active watcher and you couldn't tell already, we did get a bit of a quality upgrade. We have ditched this microphone right here, and instead, we have a new one right here. So let's get back to the mock draft. Here's what I think is going to happen if there were no trades in the first round. So let's flip over here to the PFF mock draft simulator. I'm using PFF as I was able to switch around the picks pretty easily, and they kind of have similar rankings to me as well, so that is great. So let's get this thing started. With pick number 1, we have the Chicago Bears, who, in my opinion, I expected them to be bad, and they ended up being the worst team at 3-14, but honestly, they shouldn't have had that first overall pick. I believe the Colts ended up playing that game smart, and they took Bryce Young away from the Texans if someone trades up to take Bryce Young. Personally, if the Colts were to trade up, I would think that they would take Will Levis because I've heard a lot about them loving Levis. So Bryce Young falls to the Texans anyways. If the Bears stay, Bryce Young still likely falls to the Texans unless the Bears somehow get rid of Fields for bigger draft capital. But outside of that, a trade is very likely, but if the Bears do not trade out of this pick, they have needs all around this team. They have wide receiver, they have offensive line, they have edge, they have interior line, linebacker, and even some defensive back depth is needed on this team. So honestly, when I'm drafting with the Bears, I'm not taking an offensive player with the first overall pick. If I don't trade down, I'm taking the best available defensive player. And if you watched my video on my edge rushers, I said that Will Anderson Jr. is my favorite player in this draft. So, Will Anderson Jr., I have going number 1 to the Chicago Bears. Now, Anderson can do basically anything on that defense. He's a great pass rusher with quick and tough abilities. He's a good run defender, and he's got a lot of poise behind the line. And I'm thinking he could potentially be the Micah Parsons of the Chicago Bears, but I don't want to say too much yet. I haven't seen too much of him in coverage, so I can't say too much about that right now. Next up, with the second overall pick, we have the Houston Texans. It's their annual underwhelming season. They still have a bunch of holes to fill. Last season, they drafted Derek Stingley with the 3rd overall pick, and he was good. He was a good defensive back. I'll give him that. Sauce was better, but Stingley was still good. They still have a bunch of holes to fill, especially on the offensive line, on the edge, on the entire defensive line, actually, and at linebacker as well. So when you're going into this pick with the Texans, I think it's pretty obvious, and I'm just going to click it now. I have the Texans taking Bryce Young with the 2nd overall pick, but I think they're taking it for more positional value instead of positional need. I think if they're a little smarter, they could definitely go with Jalen Carter, but I think Bryce Young is a lock at number 2 if number 1 does not take them. Bryce Young is still a game changer overall. He's got fantastic poise in the pocket as well, and he's got pinpoint accuracy in the short and medium games, and he's just a nice game manager as well. He does have a pretty big issue with deep ball inconsistencies, but if you want to see all about that, in the description, I have my Bryce Young scouting report video if you want to go check that out. But overall, I think even if the Texans don't take a guy that isn't Bryce Young, they're still getting a lot of positional value if they take quarterback at this place. At 3rd overall, we had the Arizona Cardinals. From here, we're going to see a pretty big trend of teams that had disappointing seasons, but most of them don't have their first round pick, and luckily Arizona does. So they went 4-13 with what we all presume to be a good roster, but now they're suddenly shadowing themselves as one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the NFL, if not the most dysfunctional franchise in the league. They do have needs all around. They have a lot on the O-line, and they need a pretty big skill player, especially if DeAndre Hopkins goes in the offseason. They need a lot of edge, they need D-line, and honestly, they just need players. So once again, this team should be going into this draft looking for the best man available. You have Miles Murphy, big edge. He's my one of my 4 A+ prospects in this draft. You have Brian Breesy. They have a pretty big need on the interior defensive line. Brian Branch, Alabama native, pretty good safety, and you're gonna see he's going to fall pretty far in this draft. But I did not mention Jalen Carter, and he is who the Arizona Cardinals are going to take with this pick. I believe if the Bears take Jalen Carter, the Cardinals are going to take Will Anderson. If the Bears take Will Anderson, the Cardinals are going to take Jalen Carter. So just like Anderson, Carter shows a lot of physicality and athleticism very, very well. He's a pocket destroyer in the run game, but he could improve just a little bit in the pass. The one up for Will Anderson is the larger versatility of defensive weapons that he has in his skill set. But nonetheless, Jalen Carter is still an A+ prospect in my books. He is a phenomenal prospect. At number 4, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they had another very disappointing season at 4-12-1. They showed a lot of flaws that we hadn't seen in the last couple of years, especially on the defense. So, Indianapolis in this draft could definitely trade up to number 1 overall. But again, this is a no trade draft, and the Colts love Will Levis. So, I think no matter what, even if they do trade up to number 1 overall, I don't think that they don't take Levis there. And again, Bryce Young ends up going to the Texans anyways. But outside of that, the Colts do need offensive line. Their offensive line, again, something that we saw was pretty good in previous seasons, was not so good this season. They also need a bit of help on the edge, and they also need some defensive back depth as well. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Will Levis goes here to Indy at number 4. Personally, I don't like the pick. He's talented. He's very mobile. He's got the arm talent as well, but he's an awful decision maker. He can threaten an offense at multiple levels, though, and they're banking on upside if they take Levis this high. And if any team takes Will Levis this high, they're banking on a lot of upside. So Will Levis goes number 4 to the Indianapolis Colts. Now at number 5, we have the Seattle Seahawks. They made the playoffs and they get the advantage because Denver, disappointing season. Denver went 5-12. I'm a Broncos fan. I hate that so much. And I hate that Seattle has this pick instead of us. But Seattle can easily capitalize off their playoff season with their 2 first-round picks. I could see them trading for even maybe another first-round pick, trading out of this 5th overall pick since they don't really have a big player they need to take here. Nonetheless, they have some needs on the interior offensive line. Their offensive tackles are talented and young. Charles Cross, he was a rookie last year. Could have been better as a rookie, but again, rookie, you spent a first-round pick on him. You shouldn't have to replace him this early unless it's Josh Rosen and the Arizona Cardinals. Other than that, on defense, they have a bit of needs. They have needs at edge. They have needs at defensive line, and they have needs at linebacker as well. But they could honestly take anyone here. Their skill players are still developing, so there's no need to help out Geno Smith again. So I'm saying bank on the defense here and take advantage of this insane edge rushing class. If you want to hear more about that edge rushing class, I have another video in the description of me talking about this class, and there ends up being 6 edge rushers who go here in this first round, so stay tuned to see those. But they're going to take an edge rusher right here, so they're going to go with Miles Murphy. I originally had Brian Breesy going here, but I figured that Miles Murphy, if they need him, he can play on all of the defensive line. He could play edge, he could play any defensive end position or a nose tackle position. He's that talented. If the Seahawks need help pass defending or if they need help run defending, he's there. He's also a fantastic athlete who personally, to me, doesn't have any major flaws. So again, he's an A+ prospect, and I think Seattle is getting a really good player if they take Miles Murphy with pick 5. Up next to number 6, we have the Detroit Lions, who are so close to making the playoffs, but again, they get another first-round pick. They get this one from the Los Angeles Rams, who had a disappointing season. Another 5-12 season, and honestly, Detroit was a sleeper that I called before this year. I honestly thought they were going to do exactly what they did. However, I think they started 1-6 or 1-7, and they turned out to be one of the best teams in the league at the end. So, their needs, they had one of the best offenses in the league last year. They don't need offense. This might be one of those drafts where a couple years ago, I believe the Carolina Panthers took all defense. That was the Derek Brown draft, if I'm not mistaken. that could be this Lions draft. Take all defense. Edge isn't their biggest need, and plus Miles Murphy just went off the board, so there's not another A-plus edge rusher that is available to them. Linebacker isn't the biggest need that they have on the defense, and the safeties are improving as well, so that puts them down to cornerback and defensive line. Defensive line, Brian Breesy is still available, but I think they will go DB here. Who is the best on the board, though? Brian Breesy is a really good prospect, but I do think there is one better prospect, and that is at DB. That is going to be Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Now, Gonzalez, with his size, has great size for and length for a defensive back, and he's very athletic. He's best at the press coverage. He's pretty good at man coverage, and he's got great zone coverage as well. Another one of those guys who has no major issues. He's not an A-plus prospect because he doesn't have like the best thing in the draft. Like if you take a look at these other guys, like they have something that's the best of anyone in the draft. Christian Gonzalez is great in a lot of places, but doesn't have the best in that. He's not an A-plus prospect, but he is the best DB prospect in this draft. And if Detroit is to get him, that secondary is going to be so much better. At number 7, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. A disappointing season, guys. Even the AFC West was disappointing. The Raiders ended up going 6-11, though. The Broncos were somehow worse than them. But they need a quarterback, as Carr has pretty much made it obvious he's not returning to Las Vegas this year. Jarrett Stidham had one good start, and the other start against the Chiefs was just meh. And I don't think Stidham is the quarterback of the future here for Las Vegas. They could end up pulling something like Carolina did and just not take a quarterback for the next couple of drafts. I don't like that decision, though, because CJ Stroud is on the board. If they don't take a quarterback, though, they should go offensive line or linebacker. Those are probably the two other biggest positional needs that they have. But as I just said, I have the Las Vegas Raiders going with CJ Stroud at number 7. Stroud is another prospect that I'm iffy on. He's my quarterback 2 in this draft, and he's honestly like a B prospect. I don't think he's really the best starter, and I think the perfect comparison for him is someone like Jared Goff, someone who's great with an offensive line, but if the blocking's like a little subpar, he's not going to be good. He's got great NFL arm talent, and he's got the best accuracy in this draft out of all quarterbacks, but he's not poised in the pocket. He needs that poise to be a successful quarterback. He also panics under pressure as well. Makes his decision making is just not good under pressure. So again, Jared Goff is a pretty good comparison for a guy like CJ Stroud. But I do think that they're going to have to surround that offensive line if they want Stroud to be good. I don't think they should take him here, but I think that's what will end up happening if he's available. All right, we are on the Atlanta Falcons at pick number 8. They went 7-10 this season, and there were a lot of 7-10 teams this year. So there were a lot. This year was honestly a very competitive year. This is definitely a sleeper team to take a quarterback if there's one available. Anthony Richardson might be that guy, but they took Ritter in the 3rd round. He was all right in the games that he started, but I don't know. Sleeper team to take a quarterback here. Outside of that, they have other needs, which are the entire defense as well as wide receiver. They don't have a lot of playmakers. They did just draft Drake London, but Calvin Ridley's gone, so they're going to need some sort of playmaker later in this draft. I don't think they take one here because I believe that the smartest play here would be to build off the DB. AJ Terrell was not good this year. He had a really good year last year, but this year just fell off. So I do believe that cornerback is the way to go, and PFF does not have him too high. I have Joey Porter Jr. going here to the Atlanta Falcons. He is a stud. He's got nice size, he's got nice length, and he's kind of just like Gonzalez in a way, just slightly worse. I'm very torn on who is the better DB prospect, and I could see either of them going to Detroit. He's got good press coverage. He's got good inside coverage as well. Playing underneath is a very good trait of his, but outside he's not the most physical receiver, so he's not going to make those outside breakups. Inside breakups, fantastic though. So I think Joey Porter Jr. is a stud, and this Atlanta team is getting someone great. At pick number 9, we have the Carolina Panthers, who had a surprising 7-10 season, or at least to me it was surprising, especially due to the quarterback play with that team. but I do believe that Carolina is going to try their hardest to up this quarterback position in the offseason. If they don't be surprised if they take Anthony Richardson here. But I'm going to go off the belief that Carolina is going to add a quarterback in the offseason because they have a lot of other needs that they need to take care of. They have skill positions that are kind of subpar. Their best skill player on that offense is DJ Moore, who we saw just was iffy this season. They also need some edge rushers. Yeah, Brian Burns has been playing like a beast, but on the other side, Yader Gross Matos has just been meh. They also need some defensive back depth as well. But I do believe they go skill player here, and I'm going to take the first wide receiver off the board with this pick, and Quentin Johnston is going to go to Carolina. The reason for this is he is an elite X receiver. He will fit perfectly with Carolina. He's a fantastic deep threat, and he can be fast, he can be physical, he can do it all. I thought Jackson Smith and Jigbo was going to be that first wide receiver off the board. Of course, he got hurt, and Quentin Johnston had a breakout year. So route running could be a little better though with Quentin Johnston, but personally, he's a beast. He's going to make a big impact in this league, and I wish there were people, or I wish Carolina or some other skill needy team would trade up, take Quentin Johnston earlier, because that man deserves it so much. At pick number 10, it is Philly's first of two first round picks. They got this one from New Orleans, who finished, guess what, 7-10. But they had a fantastic 14-3 season. And while I do believe that they are going to get eliminated in this upcoming conference championship round, they're still in the playoffs. So they're a great team. And honestly, they may be my Super Bowl favorites next year. And I'll let you know why in pick number 29 more. I'll extend more on that. But they have little needs. Offensive line might be a need because Jason Kelsey's getting older. And that interior line, Isaac Sumalo is okay. Yeah, Landon Dickerson is a beast though. But they could take interior line, but there's not an interior line that is worthy of this 10th overall pick. They could trade down. I don't know. But I think with this pick, if they were to keep it, they should try to buff up a position like receiver, D-line, maybe even defensive back as well. So with this pick, I have them taking Brian Breesy out of Clemson. I'll say this now. If I botched names, I apologize. But Breesy, I've been following him since he was in high school. He's a physical specimen, absolute specimen on the inside, and he showed that at Clemson. And I'm so happy that he performed well at Clemson as well. He developed very well while he was there. He does have some injury issues though, and they showed in his last two seasons at Clemson. But overall, he's a fantastic prospect, and I really hope he gets drafted high because he's a beast. The Tennessee Titans come in here at pick 11, a 7-10 disappointing season. Who's surprised? But I saw it coming personally. I didn't think that Ryan Tannehill was going to keep this up for another year. Last year we saw a little bit of a demise, and this year, yeah, he didn't perform too hot this year. And then, but I mean, they went to a backup, and clearly that didn't work out either. So they do have a bit of needs. They have some wide receiver needs. I mean, Robert Woods being your wide receiver one is not going to work out. Treylon Burks is progressing. I'm not sure how good he's going to be, though. I wasn't a big fan of his first year. Other than that, offensive tackle is a pretty big need. You got need on the edge, and you also got a need at linebacker as well. Out of these needs, I believe you take best player available. I don't think that there's any of these positions that have more value for the Titans right now. So with that being said, I have the Tennessee Titans taking Peter Skoronski. Sorry, I'm going to botch these. But Skoronowski is a very good offensive tackle, but there are three good tackles that this Titans team can take here. So they could take Paris Johnson Jr., they could take Broderick Jones. I'm not sure, but I have them taking Skoronowski here. I'm just going to go with the popular pick. He can block well on both ends of the ball. Run game, especially, he's very good at. Pass protection, he does lack some strength sometimes there, and he can struggle against some explosive rushers as well. But he's still pretty good at pass blocking, and I think he's going to be a stud in the league. I'm saying that about a lot of these prospects, but I think this draft is one of the most stacked drafts we've had in recent memory. So I have them taking Skoronski here with the pick 11. Houston is back up here with pick number 12. They got this pick from the Cleveland Browns in the Deshaun Watson trade, and they need to surround the new QB. We saw what the Jaguars did in the 2021 draft, and look at this. They made it to the divisional round and they were competing with the Chiefs for a while. Um, they should not have to worry about this defense until later. Yeah, they have a lot of holes to fill, but again, Jacksonville looked very, very good this year. I think if they wait for defense until next year to make a big impact, they might be golden. So again, surround the new quarterback. I think with this pick, if Brandon Cooks leaves, they especially will need a wide receiver. So give me Jordan Addison out of USC with this pick. Addison is great at attacking coverage. He's a very, very solid route runner. I wouldn't say he's elite or great or anything like that, but he's definitely got NFL talent to be a great route runner. He's aggressive after the catch as well, but he does have the drops issue. We've seen a lot of wide receivers kind of see their demise because of the drops, and I could see Addison doing the same. Most of his drops are concentration drops. He's focusing on getting more ahead, and as I said, he's very aggressive after the catch. That's the issue with his drop. So nonetheless, Addison is still a great prospect. My wide receiver too, and probably a lot of other people's wide receiver too as well. But I have Houston surrounding the quarterback in this one. Pick number 13 belongs to the New York Jets. So they had a very impressive start to the year. I thought they were going to be a playoff team. They finished 7-10. Not good. They're another quarterback needy team. We saw Zach Wilson. Nope. Mike White. Okay. Mike White had a couple good games, but I don't trust him still. I saw how he did that last year. It was where he had one elite game and the rest of his games were just not good. They're another team that may pick up a quarterback in free agency. Outside of quarterback, they need O-line, they need safeties, especially the offensive tackle. I don't know if Mekhi Becton should be that offensive tackle. He's always off the field. So safety again. They don't have the salary cap. This team may be doomed. If they can't get a quarterback, then this team, or if they might have to free up cap space. I'm pretty sure Carl Lawson, they could free up $15 million of cap if they release him, but they just don't have the cap space for it. So I think in this case, they're not going to be able to afford a quarterback, so they're going to have to take a quarterback. I have Anthony Richardson going here to the New York Jets. I do not like Richardson as a prospect, and he is my quarterback 7 in this draft class. But nonetheless, I can't just go with whoever. If I was to pick, I would pick Tanner McKee. But I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. I think Anthony Richardson will just because popularity. He's what more well-known as a better prospect, and I just disagree. He's got a lot of raw talent, and he's got a bunch of upside. So props to him for that. But he's got a bad decision-making, and his accuracy needs a lot of improvement. He completed 53% of his passes in college, and that if you're completing that much in college, imagine how the NFL is going to be. He's a very big boomer bust prospect, and he has to go to a team that's going to utilize his potential and actually make him a good player. And I don't know if New York is that answer, but we will see what happens. Pick number 14, we have the New England Patriots, and I swear they always have these boring picks. They're the first 8 and 9 team in this draft order. They barely missed the playoffs, and so did all these other teams. These following teams, they barely missed it. They barely missed out. They have a bit of needs though. I would say quarterback is in need. I'm not a fan of Mac Jones, but they do not need to take a quarterback here in the first round, and I do think that they stick with Mac Jones. Other than that, they have needs along the O-line scattered around. They have some elite guys, but they also have some older guys, or for example, Trent Brown is not good, or he wasn't good last year, and they also need edge and defensive line. They have solid options, but there's no great option outside of Matthew Judon. But I think we're still going to stick with that offensive tackle position because they're bad outside of Isaiah Wynn, and Isaiah Wynn spent some of the season on IR. So, with that being said, again, a big thing I'm torn on right here is Paris Johnson Jr. versus Broderick Jones. I'm just going to go with the person who I think is better, and that's Broderick Jones. He's very athletic for an offensive lineman, and he can block both the pass and the run, just like the guy who got drafted above him, Peter Skoronski. But he does have some low experience. He believe it was 19 starts that he has. He didn't see a lot of action in the games he didn't start. So with less than 2 seasons as starting offensive tackle, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But nonetheless, Jones is still a great prospect, and that's all I can really say. So with pick number 15, we have the Green Bay Packers. They missed the playoffs and they might be missing Aaron Rodgers, but we've seen how the Packers have taken this situation in past times. They shouldn't have to go for a quarterback. I do think they stick with Jordan Love personally. Jordan Love's not bad. Um, I mean Aaron Rodgers proved a lot of people wrong, so I wouldn't put it behind Jordan Love to be a great player. Outside of that, they do have a bit of needs. They need skill players outside of the running back position, especially wide receiver. Offensive line does have scattered needs around as well, and the edge rush is also lacking in. This edge class is fantastic. I don't think the Packers should pass up on one of these big edge rushers. So, with that being said, oh, he's right here. Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech is going to go here to Green Bay. In my edge prospect video, I did mention that Tyree Wilson is kind of like a JJ Watt. He could play anywhere on the line. And I could see him being an elite player. I just don't think he's going to be that kind of elite player. I do have Isaiah Foskey as a better prospect. Nonetheless, Wilson does have fantastic size. He has fantastic strength, especially on his pass rush. His run defense is good. His pass rush is even better, but he does lack his athletic capabilities. He's more of a strength and less of an athlete. And with an evolving NFL, I'm not sure if that's going to be too good. But I mean, again, we've seen JJ Watt succeed using almost pure strength. So I won't jump the gun too early on Wilson, but I do believe Wilson could be a great prospect. Pick 16, we have the Washington Commanders, the team with the coach that forgot he couldn't make the playoffs almost. And he did miss the playoffs. They basically had the 7th seed and lost it. I don't think any of those 7 seeds would have deserved the playoffs anyways. But nonetheless, another quarterback needy team. Is it worth taking one here though? I mean, let's look at PFF here. You got Tanner McKee, you got Hendon Hooker. You scroll down, Jaron Hall is a pretty good prospect. There's just no one really worth it. So I don't think they take a quarterback here. Other needs, they need skill players pretty dang bad. Offensive line as well, they need, and linebackers a pretty solid need. Jamin Davis hasn't been playing like a first round pick. So pick up a quarterback in free agency if possible, but no matter what, I think the Commanders need to add another skill player with the 16th pick. We go to the skill players, and I believe Michael Mayer is the best one available. He's an athlete at tight end, and he reminds me a lot about George Kittle because Kittle has this ability to do everything, and I think that's what Mayer can do. He can block. He's not the best blocker, but he can block. He can run. He can play in the pass game. He's got a lot of these different traits. He's also a pretty good athlete, as I already mentioned. But he's a prospect that can do it all, and he should easily be contemplated for a first-round pick. I don't think a lot of teams need a tight end. The Commanders do, and they need skill more than anything. So I would take Michael Mayer here in this pick. All right, we are in the back half of the draft, and here at pick 17, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had yet another winning season, and Mike Tomlin still hasn't had one, which is a little surprising to me that they were to do it. Another surprise for me this season was Kenny Pickett. I thought he had a pretty good season for a rookie quarterback. He's now proven me wrong. He's worth a starting job in the NFL. Outside of that, though, they do have a bit of needs. They have wide receiver, they have offensive tackle, they have defensive line, linebacker, and even defensive backs. Maybe not safeties, but more cornerbacks. And a lot of these positions they do need evenly, but take this strategically. There's a lot of offensive tackle and D-line depth in this draft. And this is a retake of a clip. So I already picked the player, but I have Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois coming here. I'm a big Illini fan, so this would be a really big pick for us. But nonetheless, Witherspoon is a great prospect. He's great in man coverage. His tackling skills are really good, and he can even play box safety. What he can't really play, though, is kind of like that deep safety because his zone defense is just not that good. He does bite pretty easily on double moves, so man on man, he's still really good, especially in the press, but he's not that good at covering these double moves. Nonetheless, great prospect, and it would be great for Pittsburgh to take him here. At pick number 18, we have the Detroit Lions, who this is their second pick in the draft. They had a pick from Los Angeles earlier, and they took Christian Gonzalez. They should keep rounding up these defenders, though. Again, this could be their entire draft. They don't need offense, and they still have a bit of needs on that defense. And honestly, they have them all around. Nothing is too good. I think the only position that they really need to not look at too far is safety. This is where I believe the Detroit Lions are going to take a little bit of a reach, where they go ahead and take Nolan Smith here out of Georgia. I don't like the pick, and I know Nolan Smith is going to be drafted a little bit higher unless teams start to notice that maybe he doesn't have as much upside as we all expected. But nonetheless, he is very smart and he's very disruptive off the edge. He's also a really, really good leader. His teammates praised that a lot during both the last two seasons, and especially in a season where there were 11 men who were better, almost better than him on that defense. He was still a big, big leader. But as I said, he lacks a good amount of elite skills, and he struggles to use his hands and arms to weave around defenders and blockers. That's what edge rushers need. So I'm not a big fan of Nolan Smith, but I believe this is where Detroit ends up taking them at number 18. All right, pick number 19, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another potentially quarterback needy team. I wouldn't be surprised if they rode out with Kyle Trask, though. I'm not going to lie. But with Brady potentially out, this team does need another quarterback. Outside of that, though, tight end, interior O-line, edge, safety. I disagree with PFF here. I don't think they need defensive line, but this could really go anywhere. And with this entire team showing their flaws this year, especially with the coaching, I don't really like the coaching in there. They should take the best player available. And the best player available, no, it's not Paris Johnson to me. It is Brian Branch out of Alabama. As I said earlier, Branch is a big candidate to fall very, very far. And he's lucky that he falls this far. He could play both corner and safety as well as box safety as well. I do believe he's a better defensive back than Devon Witherspoon. But again, the Steelers don't need safety. They have two pretty damn good safeties out there. But he does need to work on his ball skills a little bit. That's why I don't think he's really going to be used too much at cornerback with whatever team he goes to. But nonetheless, Brian Branch is still a great defensive back all around. And if he falls to Tampa, that might be dangerous. At number 20, Seattle has their second pick. With their first pick, they took Myles Murphy, number 5. So they don't really need the edge right now. They do need defensive line. They still need interior offensive line, and they do need linebacker. I still think they should continue to build onto this defense in this first round, especially since there's not really a good interior offensive lineman that's worth the first round pick outside of Osiris Torrance, who we'll talk about later. So keep building onto the defense. With this pick, I'm going to take a perfect scheme fit here for Seattle, and I'm going to go with Kelee Ringo out of Georgia. He is the best press corner in this entire draft, and he fits very well as a physical corner in this Seahawks defense. Very, very high upside for the NFL. But again, as I said, we're going to see this trend with cornerbacks biting too much. That's what Ringo does, and that's really a really big flaw for him. He's too aggressive sometimes, and a lot of the time he actually bites much more than a lot of these other first-round cornerbacks. But he's still very, very talented, so I don't think he should be passed up on just for that reason. All right, at pick number 21, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. They got some all-around needs as well, but they were still a pretty solid team, and I don't think they should get rid of that coaching. Yeah, they have had a bit of struggle in the playoffs and in clutch time as well, but they're still a solid team all around. They do need some offensive line and some defensive line help, though, as well as some DB help, especially since J.C. Jackson has not lived up to the standard that we wanted him to. Well, I wanted him to because, division rival, but you get the point. I think they need to protect Herbert. They might pass up on O-line here, especially since Herbert was very, very poised, and he's the most poised version in his career that we've seen this season. But I still think they need to take an offensive lineman to counteract that pressure. So now I'll take what PFF thinks is the best player on the board, and that's Paris Johnson Jr. He's the best athlete at offensive line in this entire class, but he also is one of the weakest first-round draft picks in this class. Yeah, but he's still got great size and length. Don't get me wrong with that. I believe he's 6'7" and like 300 something pounds. So great size, great length for an offensive lineman, but he's not isn't the strongest guy, but he is very, very athletic. But you do need strength at O-line. Don't get me wrong. But he's still a great prospect. And the Chargers, honestly, if Paris Johnson is available this late, they'd be dumb to not take him. Pick number 22 belongs to the Baltimore Ravens. They had an average season this year for a Baltimore standard, but they got an interesting situation coming in here. Do they franchise tag Lamar? Do they extend him? Do they let him go? I'm hearing a lot that Baltimore is keeping Lamar Jackson and Lamar Jackson is there to stay and he's glad to be there. But I'm not sure what they're going to do with this contract here. Outside of that, they do have a pretty big need at wide receiver. I know Rashad Bateman got hurt this year, but the wide receivers, they signed Sammy Watkins to play. Deshaun Jackson they signed to play. I believe that wide receiver is such a big need for this team, but outside of that, I don't think they take one. I think they take someone on the defense since their defense was under average for a Baltimore Ravens standard this year. Edge, interior line, and defensive back depth is big. They got the two starting D backs, and they're both pretty solid, but I think they need that depth there. But this is not where they take it. Don't get me wrong. I think this is where a little bit of a surprise comes in. For me, this is a really, really good pick. Scroll down a bit here. They take Isaiah Foskey with this 22nd overall pick. It's a very interesting situation, and I believe that Foskey is the best player available for their needs. He's a great all-around defender, and he's not the best pure edge available in this draft. But again, great all-around defender. He could make an impact on the inside, outside, and maybe even at linebacker. The production and development was there at Notre Dame, especially, and he's got a very, very small set of pass rushing skills. He doesn't really have that good of a spin move. He uses his arms pretty well, but simple wraparound, that's going to get read pretty dang easily. But overall, Foskey is my third favorite edge rushing prospect in this class. And what is this? This is the fifth one that has been taken. So I don't want Foskey to fall out the first round. And if he does fall out the first round, any team that takes him is getting an absolute steal. Pick number 23, we have the Minnesota Vikings. How do you go 13-4 with a negative point differential? I have no clue. It was such a weird season for them, but they need defense. That offense it didn't really perform the best times, but that offense is still so much better than that defense. The defense is the reason they had a negative point differential in the first place. So I don't care for offense this early on. We're going to go with defense here, and they just need anyone all around. Lucas Van Ness, I'm not sure. Continue Cam Smith. The cornerback isn't their biggest need, and I don't think they need to take a first round, especially Trent Simpson. I'm not a fan of any of the linebackers in this draft class. I don't know if one goes right now. And Antonio Johnson, I don't even know how you say that. I haven't even scouted this guy, so I couldn't tell you how good he is. But who I have scouted is Siaki Ika, who is going to go number 23 here to the Minnesota Vikings. He is an athletic interior defensive lineman, but he doesn't rely on his athleticism. He's also got a pretty good strength skill set, and that combination is just fantastic. Nonetheless, he can't produce in double teams that well, so teams would be smart to double team him, especially since the teammates aren't feeding off of that double team. He's not producing in those. He's a non-factor, absolutely. Nonetheless, still a pretty good pick here at pick 23. I would say it's a little bit of a reach, but they are drafting for need here. So Siaki Ika, number 23. At pick 24, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have picked first overall twice in the last two seasons. They had a good season all around, though. The offense was pretty good, especially led by Trevor Lawrence. That was a very good offense, and I'm so happy to see Trevor Lawrence having a pretty good season after he had to deal with Urban Meyer last year. The defense was pretty solid, too, but both of those lines need some help. Jacksonville, they have Cam Robinson, they have Brandon Sheriff, but man, it's just all around. Defensive line as well, it's just not that good. They should not go for D-line here, though. We saw Taven Bryan a few years back. That didn't work out too well. It was a bit of a reach at the time, and it's going to be a bit of a reach now. They don't really have any better defensive linemen at the moment. So they are going to take the first interior offensive lineman off the board, and it will be Osiris Torrance from Florida. Big man with length. I mean, big man with length. He is strong and he's such a great all around blocker, but he is very, very inconsistent, and he may get exposed by these elite interior D linemen that we see. I would say probably the lowest that we see him getting exposed at is like a Greedy Jarrett kind of guy. Everyone above that, I believe, would expose Torrance, and teams are gonna, or the Jaguars are gonna have to watch out for this if they take Torrance. But nonetheless, pretty good prospect. Again, pretty big guy, and he has that strength to be a good run blocker and pass blocker with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have arrived to what would be the back quarter of this draft, but we all know the Miami Dolphins do not have their first round picks. So we are down to 7 picks left. We start here with the New York Giants. They started off well, finished off weak. They did not show in the Philly game, but they showed in the Minnesota game. So they were pretty inconsistent this year overall. But I do love Brian Dable as a coach. He is a pretty big coach of the year candidate, and he has completely flipped around this New York team. Needs wise, though, skill players. We saw those wide receivers. I mean, who were some of the people catching passes in that game? Isaiah Hodgins. I didn't see Kenny Galladay catch pass. Lawrence Cager. I don't know. I don't know any of the other guys. They don't have a lot of skill players. They just drafted Wan'Dale Robinson, but he's not really going to be that big of an impact player. So keep the skill player. Yeah, they need interior O line. They need linebackers. They need safeties. I don't know. I don't know if they really need a safety though. I think Julian loves him pretty solid, but nonetheless, they need to take a skill player. Trust in Danny Dimes, especially if Saquon leaves. He needs another guy to trust on. If Saquon leaves, Bijan Robinson is the perfect pick here. But I'm playing off the assumption that he comes back. So, with that being said, I believe Jackson Smith-Njigba is the pick here. He could have been the wide receiver one if he played in 2022. Very, very good route runner. Reminds me a lot about the crisp route running of Devontae Adams, and he's got very, very high potential in the NFL. But as I said, he missed 2022. He had a big injury. That is a big concern for any team that's willing to draft him. But nonetheless, he's a great player, and I believe that this is where he gets drafted, is pick 25 to New York. Pick number 26, Dallas Cowboys, another end in the divisional round for this Cowboys team. I thought Tampa would have beat them too, so they went further than I thought, but overall they had a great season. There's no massive needs outside of the defensive line for them, and there aren't a lot of defensive line available. So this is a perfect spot to trade down. But with no option to trade down, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting South Carolina cornerback Cam Smith. This is a fantastic value pick for Dallas. He could have been he should be drafted earlier, but there's not a lot of teams that should have to pick a cornerback. They can, so I think Cam Smith could easily go higher than 26, but nonetheless, he's got great ball skills, and he's not an aggressive ball hawk. He's kind of a guy who wants to break up the pass more than intercept the ball. Of course, he's going to look to pick that ball off, but not what his biggest trait is. He's more of a pass breakup guy. Aggression is a concern. Another trend with these corners. He bites a little too much sometimes, but he's not as aggressive as a Keely Ringo kind of guy. Keely Ringo is just extremely aggressive. I shouldn't even compare. He's in his own little world over there, but nonetheless, Cam Smith, great prospect, great value pick here for Dallas. The Buffalo Bills are up next. They took a tragic loss to Cincinnati, but I called it. I knew the Bengals were going to take down the Bills in this round. I still think the Bengals are going to win the whole thing. But they had a great season, but they haven't been able to finish in the playoffs, and now there's a little concern that maybe Stephon Diggs might be gone. We will see. But they do have some needs at that skill position nonetheless. Interior line, they do need a little bit. Defensive back as well. Safeties are starting to get hurt a little bit. Corners are just average at best. Kyer Elam has not been the corner that they wanted him to be this year, especially. But I don't think that they go DB. I don't think they go defense. With how successful everyone was on offense this year, or on both sides of the ball, I mean, they went, 12-5? 12-4. 12-4. they need another threat for this offense. Let me just say that real quick. This would be an absolute big pick for Buffalo here. This man fell to the Bills. He's a great fit for Buffalo, and he's a 1-2 punch with James Cook if Singletary ends up walking. If Singletary doesn't walk, I still think he does get that jab over Singletary, which is why I think Singletary should walk anyways, but we won't talk about that. He is extremely athletic. He's got pretty good size, and he's very, very hard to tackle. He does have an injury concern, but honestly, that's my only concern with Bijan Robinson, making him my 4th A-plus prospect that we've seen in this draft. We saw Will Anderson Jr., we saw Myles Murphy. We saw, I don't remember who the third one was at the top of my head. I don't know why. Bijan Robinson is the 4th. So Buffalo, if they're able to get Bijan Robinson, good for them, but everyone should be scared if they do. We're down to 4 picks. Kansas City picks here at number 28. They had another ridiculous season, but they couldn't beat Cincy again. At least that's what I think is going to happen. This video is going up on Tuesday before the conference championship, so hasn't happened yet, but I do think that Cincy yet again takes down Kansas City. But nonetheless, Kansas City needs those skill players as well. This back half, what we're seeing with a trend with a lot of these teams is they don't have the best skill players, but they have great quarterbacks. Unless you're Cincinnati, that's why they're winning the whole damn thing. So after the departure of Hill, there should be a pretty easy decision here at wide receiver. I mean, look at that. Josh Downs, maybe not. Jalen Hyatt he's up there, but I'm not a big fan of him as an NFL prospect. I'm not gonna lie. Trey Palmer's a pretty good prospect. Tyler Scott's a solid Marvin Mims. But no one's touching Zay Flowers right now. He's a great athlete, and he could be utilized like a Deebo Samuel in this offense, especially when a team like Kansas City relies a lot on speedy receivers. I'm surprised they didn't use Sky more. I'm surprised, he should have had more volume. He's a good receiver. Route running is good enough for a day 1 pick. His route running is probably like day 3 talent, but nonetheless, he's still a great athlete. That makes up for it. But he's not a great blocker. He does lack a lot of size. He lacks a lot of strength as well. But Zay Flowers is still a crazy athlete. Another athlete that would fit very well in this Kansas City offense. Philadelphia Eagles' second pick of the draft comes here at pick 29. Their first pick, they picked Brian Breesy. They didn't really need that defensive line, but as I keep saying, they just keep making the rich richer. They still need some O-line, but those offensive tackles are good, and they're good where they are. Interior could use some work, but again, there's not really any other good interior lineman that would be worth this pick. They could definitely reach, but if I'm the Bills, I'm just going to keep making the rich richer. And again, that's why they're my Super Bowl favorites next year, is because if they keep these 2 first-round picks, they just build up on this team, they're going to be elite again. So with the 29th overall pick, I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama. He's a dual-threat running back, and he reminds me a lot of Kenneth Gainwell. Who would you rather have? A first-round prospect on Jahmyr Gibbs, who was looking really good at Alabama, or Kenneth Gainwell, who's just average? What you tell me. I think that Gibbs is a much better player than Kenneth Gainwell, and he's not the best blocker. So teams that are looking for a 3-down back should stay away. But I don't think the Eagles are looking for a 3-down back. They already got Miles Sanders, who can work on third down. So Gibbs, he's a great receiving back, and he's a great runner as well. I think he would fit perfect with Philly, and if he falls to Philly, I think the Eagles should take him. At pick number 30, we have the Denver Broncos, who have the pick from Miami, who got the pick from San Francisco. So, again, disappointing season for Denver at 5-12. A new coach should change everything. They won't have this pick if they get Sean Payton. And honestly, I would be surprised if they had this pick in general. They might trade up even if they don't get Sean Payton. If they do, this pick's not even going to be there. It's going to be a Saints pick. But no trades, so they need O-line, they need D-line, they need linebacker, they need defensive back depth. There's so many players that they could take here. So I think they go best player that fits their needs, and that player is Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. He matches well in the run block with a guy like Javonte Williams, and he's also a pretty top-tier pass blocker. So I think that with these two combinations, I think Anton Harrison would actually be a perfect fit with Denver. Again, doubt they have the pick, but Anton Harrison does lack a little bit of strength on offensive tackle, or for a near average offensive line, he's probably on the bottom like quarter of strength. He is a slightly worse version of Paris Johnson, though. So I do think that Anton Harrison is a fantastic fit for Denver. And if they have pick number 30 and he's on the board, I think that's who they take. And we have made it to the last pick of the first round. I have about an hour and a half of raw footage right now. This is going to take forever to edit, but we have the Cincinnati Bengals, my Super Bowl champions. Fantastic year. There's so much more to come. I think Joe Burrow ends up adding an MVP or two, and Joe Burrow reminds me a lot of Tom Brady. So he's not the most talented, but he's definitely the smartest. One of the smartest, at least. Needs, offensive tackle, defensive line depth. They don't have a lot of needs at all. I think they take advantage of the edge class, though. They need to draft some depth for that edge as well. They have Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, but behind that, they don't have too much. They have Cam Samples, probably the third best edge rusher. So why don't we give them a new third best edge rusher? And we are going to give them, I need to find him, BJ Ojulari out of LSU. He uses his athleticism much more than he uses his strength. So that's something that might be a little bit of a problem, but he did put up a lot of pressures at LSU. And his brother Aziz is succeeding in the NFL, but I still do believe that despite BJ being the same size as Aziz, size is still going to be a little bit of a concern. But if he can fit into that role, it's going to be great. So I have my graded mock draft now. I don't think it's graded. Yeah, they don't grade. I don't know why they don't grade the drafts, but nonetheless, that is my first round mock draft. So if you guys enjoyed this video, or first off, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy this video, I'm sorry it was so long. Please make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel for more content. As you can see in this top right, we only have 33 subscribers. Let's try to get to 100 by the end of February. Again, please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. There will be more content like this and more mock drafts. This is only 1.0, so later on there will be more mock drafts. So if you want more, please make sure to check my channel out. Also in the description, I have a couple of my other videos if you want to watch those and see if you're interested before you subscribe. Or I also have my other social medias and my website for other extensive coverage that I put out. So once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. And I'll see you guys in the next video.